I don't even know what I'm making a video about, and I'm already recording.
It looks good.
Looks good. I got 2 Fujis. I don't know what to say. How do I tell people I'm not on Sony anymore? I know most of you guys probably follow me for my Sony content because I've been Sony. I actually originally was Nikon and then I switched over to Sony before I started my YouTube channel. Just interrupting this video to let you guys know, I was talking in this video about how I'm set the X-T5s up with the custom buttons and film simulations and everything like that. I realized that I can just give you guys my backup file. So I've set the cameras up, saved the file, and I've put it on my store and it's gonna be free for you guys. So if you wanna set your camera up, your X-T5 up the same way mine is, you can just go to the store, download that for free and upload it to your camera. It's just gonna have to be on the same firmware version, which I can't remember what it is, so I'll put it on the screen. Otherwise, yeah, let's just get back to the video. I'm a professional full-time wedding photographer and I've shot over 700 weddings now. I'm just finding myself needing a little bit more inspiration and just something new to, you know, have some fun with. I'm gonna run through the story. This is gonna be a video that some of you will be interested in and some won't, but I wanna tell you guys the full picture and disclose everything so you kind of know where we're at. So I've had some kind of Fuji camera for many years. I've always had the X100 series cameras. I actually shot Ethan's wedding on an XT3 years and years ago. But in my view, they were never quite good enough for my professional work. Just things were a little bit too difficult with low light and focus tracking and things like that. I'm on the Sony A7IVs till this point and they've been amazing, but they just don't inspire me anymore. They're almost too good. I still believe that they are the best tool for a wedding photographer, the Sony A7IV, but that doesn't mean it's the best tool for me. And yeah, I've just been really wanting to try the Fuji system again. Me and Ethan approached Fuji. They didn't approach us, we approached them. We reached out and said, hey, we want to work with you guys. Maybe we can come up with some kind of arrangement where we help you and you help us and all that kind of stuff. And to cut a long story short, they came here into the studio and we had a little chat, and I was most impressed by their attitudes when we all kind of sat down and I said to them, look, I really want to work with you guys, and everybody likes free stuff, but I don't want to be sponsored in a way that means I have to only shoot Fuji and I can't talk about anything else because that's not what my channel's about. And I don't even know if I want to sell my Sonys. What do you think about that? And they were like, that's fine. We're totally fine with that. And I was like, all right, shit. I mean, that's pretty new in my experience from working with camera companies, but that was a big green flag for me. So we ended up signing a deal with Fuji, and you know, full disclosure, I got a couple of X-T5s and a couple of lenses for free. I do get to keep them, and we are working with Fuji, so take that as you will. You guys know, if you've been following my channel for a while, that my reviews are always honest. I don't care if I'm sponsored, and Fuji know that as well. When I went over they flew me over to Sydney for the GFX release, a couple of them commented on how ruthless I am with my reviews on the new GFX, but that's just what I do. I don't want to do promotional stuff, I want to do real reviews. So you guys can choose to trust what I'm saying or not. It's totally up to you. I'm not fussed. Skipping forward now to my first initial impressions of the X-T5s for photo and video. I've shot a couple of weddings with them now, and I ended up taking my Sony kit because I was just too nervous and I didn't know what to expect or anything like that. Obviously I'd set them up and practice and all that. I went in there and everything was great. I really, really enjoyed them. First I'll talk about autofocus because that has been the biggest thing switching from Sony to Fuji, and the Sony A7IV autofocus is definitely better than the X-T5 or the XH2S or XH2. I'm filming on XH2S now. Yeah, the Sony focus is just better. It's just how it is. However, I was kind of nervous about the focus system on Fuji because I'd watched a lot of reviews before getting the cameras and they were really bad. What I was seeing was quite bad, but I haven't had that experience at all. I don't know what other people are doing. The autofocus for video is really good. I'm only using the linear motor lenses, so that could be something to do with it. And I'll put my settings on the screen that I found work best for photo and video autofocus. The only thing I do find is that the subject tracking, the kind of 3D tracking, which would be like the equivalent of Sony's real-time AF, is not that reliable. So I found I've had to use single point focus and just use So I'm using back button focus with single point and just moving the point around. And that has worked really well. I haven't really had any missed shots at all. On the first wedding I had a few missed shots because I was using that 3D tracking, and I think what's happening is if you're using like the 18mm 1.4, there's not enough depth compression for the lens, for the camera system to kind of figure out what is the background or not, and sometimes it just focuses on the background. But switching to single point focus and just putting that little box over your subject is perfectly reliable. Haven't had any issues at all with that. It's obviously a bit more of a manual process doing it that way. The Sony focus, like using the AF tracking, is obviously much easier, but part of the reason I'm switching over is because my job is just too easy, and I want to make it, I'm shooting film at weddings now on a manual focus camera, a lot of shots with them because I just need that inspiration and something kind of fun to get me back into, just get me back inspired into shooting again generally. And one thing these cameras do for me is they make me want to take photos. Where I'm at now in my career, I feel like using gear that makes you want to take photos makes you take better photos. I think if you buy any camera these days that's like aimed at the professional market, it's going to be better than what you need anyway. It's just on how you use it. Next thing I'll talk about is the image quality and low light ability. So low light ability is not as good as a full frame camera like the A7IV, but it's good enough that I'm not worried about it. So I can shoot up to about 6400 ISO with the XT5 and be totally happy with the files. Even up to like 8000 is fine. I've shot a few at 12,800 and it does get a little bit noisy. I do find the noise is a little bit more pleasing than on the Sony files. I find the Sony files have a bit more color to the noise. And then next, in terms of image quality, you're talking about dynamic range. The dynamic range on these cameras is crazy. As far as I can tell, it's just as good as any full frame camera that I've tried. And the colors are really nice. There's something different about the Fuji files for sure that are just really pleasing. They're not as sharp as my full frame files from the Sony, but I think that's partly to do with Lightroom and partly because it's a crop sensor and maybe something to do with the lenses, I don't know, but the files are plenty sharp enough and I'm not concerned with that sharpness issue anymore if you watch some of my previous videos. We did try the DxO software. If you can, I'll put a link in the description if you want to sharpen your files. It does convert them to DNG and make them a lot sharper, but it's another process and I'm not too concerned, so I don't really want to do that. Color-wise, I find the Fuji's really great. There's just something different about them, like I said. I find like Canon, Sony and Nikon are all kind of different, but if I'm putting my presets on them, they kind of look the same, whereas the Fuji's just have something different about the tones and the colors in the image, and I'm really, really liking it. Next, talking about the viewfinder and the screen and just the body and usability in general. I love them. It's really nice to hold. I've put these small rig grips on them because obviously they just don't fit my hands without them. But with the grip on them, they feel really good. I do like the dials, but not really for wedding work. I'm usually just using it in aperture priority with auto ISO and having my minimum shutter speed set to 2/50th of a second. And the only difficulty I found with the dials and how the camera's set up is switching from that, like aperture priority auto ISO, to full manual and using flash. It's kind of a bit of a process, but I've set it up now so that all I have to do is change the two top dials, and then I'm just using the dials anyway. It's a bit of a process, but it works fine. Switching between photo and video is really easy. You can set it up so that it remembers your settings. So I'm using F-Log. This is all filmed in F-LOG2. And I find the colors are really great with that as well. I'll put some samples up of some video footage I shot in F-Log so you can see what it looks like. Just color graded and Final Cut with my LUTs. Battery life is great. I expected the battery life to be much worse, honestly. We've bought a bunch of small rig batteries and we have some genuine Fuji ones as well. I've never used more than 2 batteries for the 3 weddings I have done. With 2 of them were full day and 1 of them was a half day. And the full day one, I didn't use 2 batteries. It was like 1.5 batteries per camera, which was about the same as what I'm getting from Sony. So yeah, I didn't have any issues with battery life at all. The other next thing I noticed was the size and weight of these cameras is insane. Like, obviously they're a lot smaller and lighter than a full frame setup, but until you have your dual strap on and you're at a wedding and you're shooting all day, that's when you kind of notice, you're like, holy shit, these things are so much lighter. It's not, I'm a big dude, it's not really a problem. It was never an issue with the Sonys, but you know, when you're doing like 2 weddings a week through summer, you do end up getting pretty sore shoulders after a while, and the Fuji XT5s are amazing for that. They're just so much lighter. I'm gonna go through and do a video with how I've set these cameras up, because I'm pretty happy with them now. I've kind of found a good balance between making them kind of work like my Sonys used to, because I obviously had those really refined in terms of all the custom functions and focusing and the custom buttons and everything like that. And yeah, I'll set all those up, and I'll show you guys my film simulations as well, which is another great thing. Oh, one thing I forgot to talk about was the app. The Fuji app on iPhone, it works so well. Being able to transfer files to your phone and like edit them, it just works so much better than the Sony app, which is just horrible. It used to be better until the firmware update happened, and then it just doesn't work at all. You guys might have a different experience, but if you're on the latest firmware, the A7IV, and using the Sony app, I just can't get it to work anymore. And one other thing I forgot to talk about was the shutter sound. These cameras are so quiet, the mechanical shutter is so quiet. I was shooting in a big church a couple of days ago at a wedding, and I gave my second shooter my A7IV to kind of get some background close-up shots of like guest reactions and stuff, and you can hear the shutter slapping away so loud compared to the XT5. I don't know if you can hear it. It's so quiet. But other than that, I guess I'm on Fuji now, and we'll just see what happens and enjoy the cameras, make a bunch of content around them. I'm going to give you guys a full review of the camera once I've really used it a lot more, and you know, a review of the lenses I'm using and everything like that. I'll show you guys how I'm using the cameras for hybrid with photo and video and give you a full setup guide, but this video is probably dragging on a bit too much anyways, so thanks to Fuji for working with us, and I hope you guys follow along and look forward to more content. See you soon. That was the most awkward outro I've ever done.